Welcome to the Behind Closed Doors channel. Wishing you a peaceful day. Today, I'd like to share the following story with you. I hope you enjoy listening to my story. Now, please.
I never heard my mother say, "I'm sorry," until the day I stopped staying silent. Lan was 28, living alone in a small rented apartment in Saigon, working as a freelance graphic designer. From the outside, her life looked stable enough. Work that paid the bills, a few casual friends, a pretty face, and a smile always ready at the right moment. She was the kind of woman people met and immediately thought composed, mature, easygoing. Only Lan knew that easygoing was sometimes just another word for someone who had learned how to endure. That afternoon, in the cramped therapy room lit by a dim yellow lamp staining the peeling wall with tired light, Lan sat across from Hoa, the first therapist who had ever made her feel she did not need to perform. Outside the glass window, Saigon rain fell softly. Inside, Lan clenched her hands so tightly, her nails pressed into her skin. I have never heard my mother say, "I'm sorry." Her voice was so quiet, it almost dissolved into the rain. Not once, not, "You did well," not, "I understand you." It was not an accusation, only a fact. And sometimes, facts are the sharpest things in the world. Lan grew up in Daklak, in an old wooden house beside a coffee garden. Her father died early in a traffic accident when she was still young. After that, her mother Huang became the only pillar holding the family upright. Huang was the kind of woman built for burden. Thin, stern, and sparing with words. She woke before dawn and worked until long after dark. Her hands always smelled of soil, soap, and roasted coffee. She raised 2 children on a kind of sacrifice so relentless it bordered on cruelty. She simply never learned how to love out loud. Lan's childhood was not deprived in the obvious ways. She had food, she had school tuition, she had warm clothes folded neatly by her bed on cold mornings. She had a mother who stayed awake all night wiping her fevered skin with cool cloths. But that childhood lacked something harder to name, the feeling of being seen. Lan remembered being 12, mocked by classmates for wearing a worn-out old dress. She ran home crying and threw herself into her mother's arms by instinct. Huang wiped her face with a rough handkerchief and said, "Why are you crying? Stop it. Don't be weak." No embrace? No. Did they hurt you? Only an order. Stop crying. Lan obeyed. And from that day on, she learned how to silence everything. Silence pain. Silence hurt. Silence longing. Silence grief. Until she no longer knew where exactly the pain lived inside her. As an adult, Lan carried that silence into every relationship she touched. She loved the way her mother had survived, by enduring, by apologizing first, by needing little and asking for less. Her ex-boyfriend left after 3 years with one final sentence. "I never know what you're thinking. You're like a glass wall. I can see you, but I can never touch you." Lan read the message in silence. She did not beg, did not accuse, did not cry. Like always, she said, "I'm fine." But the woman who was always fine spent her nights curled in darkness, heart racing with nameless anxiety. She did not know why she always felt hollow, even though she had tried so hard to be good. Until the day her mother called. "Lan, come home. I'm sick." One short sentence, and every defense inside her collapsed. Lan returned to Daklak on an overnight bus winding through mountain passes. Outside the window, darkness stretched endlessly, like memory. She remembered the day she got her university entrance results, top score in her class. She came home, holding the paper with her heart pounding, bright with the simple hunger to be praised. Huang glanced at it, nodded once. "Good, don't get arrogant." Then turned away. No embrace. No smile. Lan felt her joy die quietly inside her chest. She remembered another time burning with fever, drifting in and out of delirium. Her mother stayed awake all night, making porridge, changing cloths, cooling her skin. But when Lan woke and cried weakly from the pain, Huang snapped. "Stop crying, you're not a child anymore." Lan grew up between two truths. Her mother loved her, and her mother hurt her. That was what made Lan's pain more complicated than ordinary loss. If her mother had been cruel, Lan could have hated her. If her mother had been indifferent, Lan could have left. But her mother loved her in a way that was clumsy, distorted, and cold. That was the hardest kind of wound to heal. When Lan arrived home, she found her mother pale in bed, her face drawn and fragile. The doctor said it was only high blood pressure. Nothing serious. But that sudden fragility made Lan see her mother for the first time not as a wall, but as something breakable. That night, while cleaning her old room, Lan found an old notebook hidden beneath the bottom of a wooden trunk. She opened it, and for the first time, she saw her mother's childhood. Not her mother. The child who had become her mother. The yellowed pages trembled with jagged handwriting. A drunken father. A mother who died by suicide when Huang was 13. Beatings. Hunger. And the same sentence written over and over like a curse. Do not cry. Crying is weakness. If you want to survive, endure. Lan's hands trembled as she read. For the first time, she understood. Her mother was not unfeeling. She had simply been taught to bury emotion before she ever learned how to name it. Huang had not been raised in tenderness. She had been raised in survival. And people raised by survival often know only how to pass on endurance, not softness. The next morning, Huang saw the notebook in Lan's hands. Her face hardened instantly. Who told you to read that? I just wanted to understand you. Understand for what? Her voice turned cold. The past is the past. That was when Lan understood the true tragedy of her family. No one here had failed to love. They had only failed to love without wounding the person in front of them. Heong had been wounded and learned to survive. Lan had been raised inside that survival and mistaken it for love. That was the root cause. Not the absence of love, but the absence of language for love, the inability to name pain, the lack of courage to face the wounds passed down through generations. Lan was not carrying only her own pain. She was carrying the emotional inheritance of a lineage that had never been taught how to heal. Lan returned to Saigon carrying a painful but liberating truth. Her mother had not meant to hurt her, but that did not make her pain any less real. Understanding did not erase damage. Compassion did not require continued suffering. That was the first lesson Hoa taught her to name. Emotional neglect. A child can be fed, clothed, educated, and still grow up feeling unseen. Lan began therapy in earnest, no longer just telling stories. She learned how to name emotion, how to sit with pain without rushing to dismiss it, how to stop saying I'm fine as reflex. Every night, she wrote in a journal, not to complain, but to practice honesty. Today I was sad. Today I was angry. Today I felt abandoned. Today I missed an apology that never existed. Each sentence became a slow stitch mending something torn inside her. Then Kian appeared. A freelance photographer, gentle, patient, warm-eyed, the kind of man who listened more than he examined. He did not try to fix her, did not try to save her. He simply stayed long enough for her to stop bracing. When they argued, Kian said, I was wrong. When Lam fell silent, he asked, Are you not ready to speak? Or are you afraid that if you do, you won't be loved anymore? Lam froze. For the first time, someone had looked directly at the fear she had spent her life hiding. Love with Kian was not dramatic. It came like early Saigon. Rain quiet, steady, soaking everything it touched. And then, just as Lan began to soften, the second rupture arrived. Huang came to Saigon. With an old suitcase and every unresolved wound she had ever carried, living together became a suffocating collision. Huang criticized everything Lan's home, her schedule, the way she loved, even the way she smiled at Qian. Every sentence dragged Lan backward into the 12-year-old girl being taught to swallow herself whole. Until one night, Lan broke. "Have you ever apologized to me? Even once?" The room went still. Huang looked at her for a long time, then answered, voice rough and low, "What would apologizing change? I did everything I could." That sentence was the final blade, and also the first door, because for the first time, Lan understood she would never receive exactly what she had lost. Not because she was unworthy, but because her mother did not have it to give. That truth was devastating and freeing. Lan stopped waiting for a different version of her mother, stopped placing her healing in the hands of someone who had never learned how to heal herself. And she understood the essential truth. Healing is not forcing the person who hurt you to become the person you needed. Healing is reclaiming the right to define yourself beyond what wounded you. She began setting boundaries. No screaming, no fleeing, only clarity. "I love you, but I will not stay silent anymore. I have the right to hurt, and I will not apologize for that." For the first time in her life, Lan was not fighting, but she was no longer surrendering. For the first time, she chose adulthood over becoming the child still begging to be seen. Love did not save her. Qian did not save her. Her mother certainly did not. The person who saved her was the first version of herself brave enough to say, "I am in pain, and that pain deserves to be heard." 6 months later, Lan returned to Daklak with Qian. Coffee season had ripened red across the hills. Wind moved through the dark earth carrying the scent of sun-warmed fruit and old memory. Huang sat on the porch, watching neighborhood children run through the yard. Her thin hands rested on her knees, her gaze quiet in the way of someone who had spent a lifetime in defense. A long while passed before she turned to Lan. Her voice came rough, low, unfamiliar. "You did well." Only 3 words. Not an apology. Not a perfect reconciliation. Not a miracle. But the first step of someone who had lived nearly an entire life before daring to soften. Lan did not cry. She only smiled. For the first time, she no longer needed a perfect sentence to feel whole. And she understood the most important truth of all. Healing is not forgetting what hurt you, nor is it forcing others to become gentler in order to repair the past. Healing is looking directly at pain, naming it honestly, and refusing to let it decide who you are. It is understanding that some people love us with everything they have, even when what they have was never whole to begin with. It is accepting that love can be clumsy, but that does not mean you must remain broken. Lan was no longer the girl who stayed silent to be loved. She learned how to speak, how to cry, how to be angry, how to draw boundaries, how to love without turning herself into a vessel for everyone else's wounds, how to forgive without betraying her own pain. And above all, she learned how to live, not merely survive. If you grew up in a home where sacrifice was abundant but tenderness was rare, do not deny your pain simply because they did their best. Sometimes people do their best and still hurt us. Both things can be true. You do not need to deny one to honor the other. You only need the courage to stop being silent. Because real love does not begin when someone else finally understands you. It begins the moment you stop abandoning yourself and dare to speak the words your heart has been forced to swallow for far too long.
Thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe to the channel, like, comments, and share. See you again!